Last year, an estimated 28 million Americans participated in the wonder that is fantasy football. I, however, was not one of them. See, during spring break when I was 12, I had the chance to go to my very first preseason baseball game, where I mistook the Minnesota Twins for the Minnesota Vikings. Clearly, football was not my thing, and neither was baseball for that matter. Until I realized last year during the Super Bowl that I could really just scroll through my friends' tweets giving play-by-plays at the game and act like I was totally in the know. And the best part was I could still watch the Puppy Bowl while doing my research. After skimming my Twitter feed for a few minutes, I could impress my friends with all my Super Bowl knowledge. Heck, I could have impressed John Madden, whoever that is. Unsurprisingly, I'm not the only one that does this type of thing on a regular basis. More and more often, we feel the need to feign knowledge on current events. Faking cultural literacy hinders our society's ability to learn new things and have honest conversations. To better understand this widespread bad habit, we will first intercept the cause of the problem, then snap to the impact before we finally score a home run, or a touchdown with some really great solutions. At some point in time, we all find ourselves fumbling through a conversation on a topic we wish we knew more about. Instead of putting up an all-knowing front, why don't we just admit we're not familiar with the topic? In a New York Times article on May 24th of last year, Carl Greenfeld explains that on a daily basis, we talk to dozens of people, usually about a variety of topics. Unless you're that one guy we all know that only talks about one thing to everyone. But for the rest of us, with all these dozens of topics, we are constantly under social pressure to be conversationally fluent on just about everything. So obviously the only solution to not being up to date on current events is to pretend you're up to date on them. And let me tell you that faking it is not a challenge by any means. Before The Fault in Our Stars hit theaters last summer, virtually every American teenage girl, including yours truly, read the book. Or at least claimed to. I mean, why actually read the book if I can just regurgitate some reviews when discussing how much better the book is than the movie? And it's not just the media that we lack cultural knowledge of. Bernard Schweizer, an English professor at Long Island University, recently tested the waters of cultural literacy with one of his classes. He asked them a few questions and found that just one student out of an entire class could identify Mahatma Gandhi. And no one had ever even heard of Ernest Hemingway or Henry David Thoreau. Despite being some of the most notable figures of the 20th century, we have forgotten those who have shaped our culture. We've become lazy because it's so easy to fake that knowledge. Greenfeld notes that in 2015, it is all too easy to pick up bits of information from Twitter feeds, newspaper headlines, or movie reviews, and then create a well-educated opinion based off of the 2-minute research we just did on our smartphone. And the trend of letting people think you know more than you actually do has become a part of our daily lives. Think back to May 28th of last year, when we found out Maya Angelou passed away. People who had never even glanced at her literature were tweeting quotes from her books and poems. Even some extempers put down their copies of The Economist to tweet some poetry that day. So what's the big deal if some extempers claim to know a little, or a lot more about poetry than they actually do? The impact of faking cultural literacy goes far beyond their small talk about poetry or mine about sports. Rachel Sugar explains in the Date Report on May 27th of last year that lying to others about timely issues on which you aren't up to date cripples our ability to have meaningful conversations. When we would normally introduce related facts we know, we too often feign knowledge or make assumptions that derail or detract from the conversation. For example, according to a student in my AP government class, New York was recently in a state of emergency due to a massive Ebola outbreak. Mind you, it was actually just one person in New York who happened to be a doctor, could monitor his symptoms, and knew when he was and wasn't contagious. There was no outbreak in New York. But like so many of us, she fabricated elaborate facts to enhance a conversation, which ultimately hindered our ability to learn new things. Sandeep Roy, writing for the Huffington Post on May 30th of last year, explains that the more we do it, the more we are trapped in some hologram version of ourselves. Each bit of cultural literacy we fake gets added to the make-believe intellectual gravitas of our persona. And it makes confessing ignorance the next time around that much more difficult. When we put up these knowledgeable fronts, it becomes more difficult for both us and others to learn about new topics and grow. Not only does faking cultural literacy hamper our relationships, it is also a disservice to the influential figures and authors we are often trying to honor. When we lose loved ones, they're eulogized by those who knew them best, to enshrine their legacies. And while it doesn't fall on us to eulogize Maya Angelou, it's important to understand her contributions to our society as the greatest poet of her generation. By not taking the time to read her work and instead just Googling her most famous quotes, we miss out on the larger messages she shared. And then, so do those with whom we share those sound bites or quotes. So how do we stop faking cultural literacy? It's as simple as it sounds. Do your homework so that you know who Gandhi is. And for the rest of the topics that arise in our daily lives, resist the urge to find a short summary on Wikipedia. The next time you find a topic that piques your interest, take the time to really research it, to expand your horizons. I recently took this advice to heart when I heard actor Robin Williams passed away. I saw so many tweets about what a great man he was. But before I Googled Robin Williams quotes, I realized that if I truly wanted to honor him, a tweet was not the way to do it. So with my stack of Barnes & Noble gift cards from Grandma, I've been collecting for far too long. I bought his biography written by Andy Dugan, along with a few of his best movies. Needless to say, it was well worth my time to learn more about a man who touched the hearts of so many people. And now I use the lessons I learned in Dugan's book to help guide me through my interactions with my friends, my family, and my teammates. While we don't all need to go spend a bunch of money at a bookstore for each topic or each person that intrigues us, we should do more than just skim over a Wikipedia page looking for catchy quotes or random statistics. Ending the bad habit of faking cultural literacy doesn't mean we have to become experts on everything. It simply means taking the time to learn more about things we'd like to be conversationally fluent on. So on February 1st, during the Super Bowl, I'll actually be watching the game. But don't worry, I'll still record the Puppy Bowl.